I love 여자친구. They're without a doubt my favorite group, and ever since my first comeback Crossroads, that fact remains true. Now, that might be a bit later when you look at the scope of the group's career over the past half a decade or so, but as a relatively new fan of K-pop as a whole, I too wish that I could have gotten into the group much earlier. What limited experience I do have with K-pop music and culture as a whole, however, I can definitely say that GFRIEND resonates with me the most. And of course, at the time of writing this, a prevailing theme of everything in the world right now is that everything that I and people love tends to die. You can imagine my sadness then when I found out about GFRIEND's sudden disbandment. I originally wrote this script right as GFRIEND made their final comeback, and in its original form, it wouldn't make much sense with the events that happened. So, in an attempt to salvage this piece and make a tribute to the legacy of, in my opinion, one of the greatest girl groups to ever exist, this is GFRIEND, a retrospective. Disclaimer, I won't be talking in detail about the theories and lore of the GFRIEND and Big Hit universe. I'll be more talking about the musical elements and narrative themes and how they can help a group tell stories through their music. GFRIEND, or 여자친구, debuted a little after the new year in 2015 under Source Music with members Kim So-jung, Jung Ya-rin, Jung Eun-bi, Choi Yoona, Bang Eun-bi, and Kim Ye-won. They debuted with the EP Seasons of Glass and Glass Bead as the title track. For what GFRIEND would come to do later in their music, Glass Bead leaned more towards the synth dance pop genre, with hints of orchestral strings throughout the song. What set the tone for GFRIEND's music for the next few years, however, is Glass Bead's chorus. The iconic chord progression in the hook with the bouncy beat set a pattern that would be followed in songs like Navilera, Rough, and Me Gustas Too. Speaking of which, on July of the same year, GFRIEND came back with their second EP, Flower Bud, and the title track, Me Gustas Too. The song continued to hammer home the musical themes established in their debut. You got the catchy as hell chorus, you got the tasty hints of strings interlaced with the core of dance synth pop, and if you know Me Gustas Too, you'll also know of a certain video that caused them to go viral. This fan cam of a stage performance on September of 2015 blew up and caused the group to gain international fame. Being internationally recognized is one thing, but nothing could prepare the K-pop music scene for what would happen 1 year later. For on January 25th of 2016, the title track Rough off their third EP Snowflake got GFRIEND their first music show win on the music program, The Show. This first win sparked a chain of 14 subsequent music show wins that would place Rough second to only Aping's LUEV for the most wins during a particular promotion period for a girl group song. The song leaned more into real instruments than the previous two, with the dance break section being dominated by strings followed by an electric guitar solo. The trend was slowly forming for what GFRIEND would eventually evolve into. But before all that, we gotta talk about one of my favorite GFRIEND songs ever. The first studio album, LOL, for Laughing Out Loud and Lots of Love, featured the title track, Navilera, and it is magnificent. A continuation of the previous 3 EPs' thematic elements of heavy synth and the instrumentation, Navilera, alongside the 2 subsequent releases, Fingertip and Love Whisper, make up a sort of transition trinity, where Glass Bead, Me Gustas Too, and Rough was the introductory trio to GFRIEND. The next 3 comebacks seem to be used more for experimentation and decision-making on how to move forward with the group's sound. This is especially evident in Fingertip, where the samples are the most jarring in comparison to the rest of the discography. Also, Rain in the Springtime is the best B-side. No questions, I'm sorry, not sorry. The question remains, what's next? The answer would come with the arrival of spring. It's time for the Moon Night, and it's time for the new GFRIEND. The titular lead single and EP saw the group almost entirely move towards melodies driven by the sentimental vocals and bombastic string accompaniment. Dropping the heavy synth influence, the song was an instant hit with the EP topping at #1 on the Gaon chart on release. The fairy tale had reached a turning point. So how do we follow such an evolution and further explore this new side of GFRIEND? Well, that's a loaded question, and besides, it's summer now, which means... That's right, no longer was it time for the Moon Night, but time for Sunny Summer. GFRIEND's 7th EP follows the naming convention of Time for the Moon Night, where both title track and title of the album share a name. They couldn't be any more different, however, as Sunny Summer felt like an homage to the old GFRIEND, with its primary drive being the playful synths and bouncy beat reminiscent in Navilera and Rough. Sunny Summer hit the summer of 2018 with a burning air of nostalgia. Time for the Moon Night and Sunny Summer set this new pattern for the following year, as no longer were GFRIEND operating in trio releases, but rather duo releases, of which one followed in Time for the Moon Night's template and the other, the summer release, in the spirit of the Sunny Summer. 3 years after their first studio album, GFRIEND came back during the 2019 New Year with Time for Us and the title track, Sunrise. After Sunny Summer, Sunrise was more of a return to form that Time for the Moon Night established the year prior. But this time it felt different somehow. Where Time for the Moon Night felt comforting and warm, Sunrise was frantic, urgent, and unstable. Both were built on the foundation of the sentimental strings and vocal melodic structure, but Sunrise has something else. It has something propelling it constantly forward that made it feel more uneasy than Time for the Moon Night did. I think the additional component can be found in the past GFRIEND. What was being utilized in songs like Me Gustas Tu and Love Whisper are being used in Sunrise to create something that was genuinely novel and never done before in GFRIEND's discography. The progressions and beats that allowed for past GFRIEND songs to be so upbeat and fun was now being used to create this uncertain atmosphere in Sunrise. It's brilliant, and it's why I love GFRIEND's music so much. This is change. This is evolution. At the start of July, GFRIEND released their 7th official EP, 8th if not counting Sunny Summer as an independent special EP, titled Fever Season. And just like how Sunrise was the natural progression for Time for the Moon Night, Fever was the natural progression for Sunny Summer. Where Sunny Summer was a callback for the early days of GFRIEND, Fever is the group's embrace of the future. It's appropriate then that the sound will reflect that, and what will be more modern sounding in tropical house EDM. Everything that includes the build-up to the hook, using increasing subdivisions of percussion to the electronic drop where the synth fully takes over as the melody. I know I spent most of the time talking about music jargon in this section, but it's because Time for the Moon Night and this era was when I truly believe GFRIEND's music and thematic elements associated with it developed the most. Well, it was the most then. At the end of July, the same month as the release of Fever Season, it was announced that Source Music was acquired by Big Hit Entertainment. And if things weren't crazy enough already, both in the music itself and the group, now being under $1 billion company granting them access to potentially unlimited resources to go anywhere with their sound, the future was promising. This would unfold in the first stage through February 2020's comeback. Their 8th official EP, Labyrinth, marked the start to a brand new trilogy. The Hui series, after the Chinese character meaning to go back or to return, perfectly summarizes the themes and concepts of the following releases. Starting with Crossroads, the song is reminiscent of post-transition GFRIEND, taking notes of melodic structures and emotional delivery found in Sunrise and Time for the Moon Night. The string break in the middle of the song especially calls back to the sonic motifs found in early GFRIEND title tracks. The Labyrinth EP was also the first project that had direct contributions from Big Hit's producers. Chief amongst them was the big man himself, Hitman Bang PD, with the titular song Labyrinth having a heavy synth pop and EDM influence, blending with unique delivery of GFRIEND, made a B-side track that was as dynamic and explosive as the title track. This was only the beginning, however, as themes of this trilogy would eventually unveil more of itself in the next comeback. On June 17th of the same year, GFRIEND came back with the second episode of their 3-part trilogy, Hui, Song of the Sirens. This comeback was the most out of left field for the group, as it completely circumvented any previous groundwork laid out in their discography. The title track Apple was unlike anything done by GFRIEND before. 2 of Big Hit's in-house producers plus another famed producer wrote and produced the song. An entirely new behind-the-scene group meant that the product that would eventually become Apple would be something that was never heard from GFRIEND before. This was the next step. Producer Franz and Hitman Bang were known to have major influences from R&B and retro styles of music. And while Apple itself is not a retro-style song, nor did it have any blatant R&B influences, what it did have, however, was the rough draft, and this outline communicated to everyone that GFRIEND was heading somewhere unprecedented. It's time for the next turning point in this fairy tale. Throughout the history of GFRIEND's music, what defines it and makes it recognizable are pillars of sonic cohesiveness and lyrical consistency. Or simply put, if their sound changes, the themes and messages of their lyrics keeps it a GFRIEND song and vice versa. In the history of GFRIEND comebacks, at most, only one of these two components have ever been neglected for growing the group's sound, and it was with the case with Apple, and I thought it would be the same for the next comeback. But then the next comeback came. 4 months later, on October 12th, GFRIEND came back to round out their Hui trilogy with the final installment, their 3rd studio album, Walpurgis Night. And well, do I really need to say anything? Mago Song of the Year 2020. Walpurgis Night was the inspiration behind this video. I absolutely love this comeback, not only because the music was absolutely incredible, it also ingeniously wrapped up the story that was started a half a decade ago. The reason why I emphasize the fairy tale aspect of GFRIEND's musical identity so much is because it ultimately doesn't define GFRIEND. They even say so themselves. What's so interesting and genius about it, though, is the simultaneous denial of their identity and the embracing of it. Up until now, the most different of the GFRIEND comebacks was Apple, but with Mago, GFRIEND is almost unrecognizable. If it weren't for these specific people singing this song, there would be no association to the GFRIEND brand otherwise. I want to take a second to talk about the song Mago itself. I think the utilization of Big Hit and the producers they had was integral to this radical shift. Big Hit had recently taken great influence from retro styles of genres, and they applied this to GFRIEND to create what is essentially the modern fairy tale. 70s and 80s music and the stories they tell are fairy tale-esque. This romanticizing of the world through bright synths and catchy rhythms almost makes it seem like this fusion of the group and genre was fated from the very start. The lyrics are sensual and alluring, reminiscent of past thematic motifs found in Apple. You can say that this song is a modern love spell, sung by modern witches. To round everything off is GFRIEND themselves. The artist is inseparable from the songs they sing, and it's evident that as GFRIEND's music has grown, so have the members. From innocently declaring their love in Me Gustas 2 to an urge of action, for the night is ticking away in Mago. As of writing this, Mago is the conclusion to the Hui trilogy and the current story of GFRIEND as a whole. Who knows where they'll go next, but with this current ending, the fairy tale of GFRIEND is no more. The world has grown up and so have the group. With their contracts about to expire soon, this might truly be the end. Whatever happens though, the story that this group has told throughout these 5 years is something so beautiful and emotional that I don't think it'll ever be replicated, because this fairy tale was real. It grew, was full of twists, and ultimately, it ended. Can you tell that the whole previous segment was written before the recent news? Yeah, poor boy. He didn't know the tragedy and sadness that would hit a few months later. He was so hopeful, full of anticipation and excitement. Anyway, here we are. The members' contracts ended on May 22nd of this year. And with that, GFRIEND, at least this iteration of members that makes up the group known as GFRIEND, is forever gone. I highly doubt that Source Music will re-debut the group name with entirely different members. Even Hype can't get away with something that mean. This disbandment was something that I've never experienced before. I've seen groups slowly fade into obscurity, and I've seen groups take permanent hiatuses where the members are still technically part of the group, but I've never seen such a clean and unanimous end. Proving that once again, to me at least, GFRIEND are trailblazers in their craft. And even if the ending of this fairy tale is not a happily ever after, the story didn't end. At least, not for the members. Rather, the chapter titled 여자친구 ended, and the stories of Kim So-jang, Jang Ye-rin, Jung Eun-bi, Choi Yoona, Hwang Eun-bi, and Kim Ye-won is just beginning.